Section 3.6, this is part 2, which is on multiplying the sum and difference of two terms. Okay, again, we have a formula that says if we have a binomial a plus b times a binomial a minus b, that this will equal a squared minus b squared. Okay, as far as how that's going to look with a problem, it would be something like what I have for number 5. We have x plus 6 times x minus 6. So we're multiplying the sum, which is the x plus 6, times the difference, the x minus 6, of two terms, x and 6. Okay, yes, we can do this by the FOIL method, which would be x times x, x squared. X times negative 6 would be negative 6x. 6 times x, positive 6x. And 6 times negative 6 would be negative 36. Okay, what is going to happen is when you combine like terms, those middle terms will subtract out. I would bring down x squared, but a negative 6x and a positive 6x will subtract out of the problem, bring down negative 36. So the shortcut kind of tells you that your outer and your inner terms are always going to subtract out. So you could just do the first and the last. Okay, so the first, x times x is x squared. Last, 6 times negative 6 is negative 36. So your answer when you're working out these kinds of problems will always be a binomial, which will be what we call the difference of two squares. If you notice, each term in the answer is a perfect square, which means I can take the square root of it evenly. And this sign in the middle will always be a negative. That's why we call it the difference of two squares. Okay, so looking at number 6, if I recognize this at the beginning of my problem, well, I've got 4y minus 5 and 4y plus 5. The same terms, but one binomial is subtraction and one is addition. Then I know that my answer will be just the first term times itself, or squared, 16y squared. And the last, negative 5 times positive 5 is negative 25. I do not have to do the outer and the inner because they're going to be exact opposites and subtract out of the problem. So I'm left with a binomial that's called the difference of two squares. Same thing on number 7. 2x squared plus 6y times 2x squared minus 6y. It doesn't matter whether the positive is first or if it's second, okay, as long as they're different. That's what's important. So when I multiply the first, 2x squared times 2x squared will be 4x to the fourth. And the last, 6y times negative 6y would be a negative 36y squared. Okay, so my answer will be a binomial, 4x to the fourth minus 36y to the second, with the difference between those two terms, okay, that being subtraction. So this is a shortcut that you can use if you choose. It is, the same procedure as multiplying using the FOIL method. Let's do one more problem with a fraction. And that is if we had x minus 1/3 times x plus 1/3. Okay, if I recognize one is subtraction, one is addition, but the terms are the same, then I can just do the first. X times x is x squared. Last, negative 1/3 times positive 1/3 will be a negative. And remember, when you're multiplying fractions, negative 1/3 times a positive 1/3 would be a negative 1/9. You multiply straight across. So my answer would be x squared minus 1/9.